Every summer, the burning sun turns much of India into a furnace. The parched land waits for deliverance from the heat, and an unquenchable thirst takes hold. Every pool of water is precious. Soon it too will be gone. There is an old belief in India that when the peacock begins to dance, rain must be on its way. But often the peacock dances in vain, and the temperature soars ever higher. Yet without the heat, there can be no rain. For it is the build-up of hot air rising from the land that will bring cool winds rushing in from the ocean. And riding these winds will come that rain-bearing god of life, the monsoon. February in India's far northeast. The monsoon is still some months away. The Kaziranga floodplain lies cloaked in winter mist. This is a wilderness that has been shaped by countless monsoons. Among the creatures that live under the monsoon sway are two of the rarest animals in India, the Asiatic wild buffalo and the great one-horned Indian rhinoceros. This young rhino is barely a few days old. It relies entirely on its mother for protection, and she's a fierce guardian. No one is allowed to come close to her calf, not even another rhino. But other rhinos are no real threat to the calf. The danger is from tigers, who will brave the mother's formidable presence to snatch a young rhino. Instinctively, the calf walks just ahead of its mother. Like all rhinos, the mother has poor eyesight, and the calf's best chance of survival is to stay right under her eyes. Every calf is precious. There are only about 2,000 Indian rhinos left in the wild, and 2/3 of them live in this primeval corner of India. On a misty morning, every breath makes them look more like medieval dragons. Kaziranga is a long stretch of swampland sandwiched between the Mekir Hills in the south and the great Brahmaputra River to the north. Over millions of years, the river has played a crucial role in shaping Kaziranga's destiny. The silt that it brings to the floodplain every monsoon makes this a land of exceptional fertility, a paradise for large animals. The luxuriant grasslands that dominate Kaziranga are home to some of the largest elephant herds in India. The grass can grow over 15 feet tall. It provides cover for all the animals and is a staple food for the elephants. Rhinos prefer to feed on the shorter grass of the meadows. This female is on heat and is laying down a seductive urine trail. More than a mile away, a bull has picked up her scent. He follows the trail like a bloodhound. For the male rhino, finding the female is only the beginning. She's a solitary animal and suspicious even of other rhinos. He approaches her cautiously. Her initial reaction is intimidating. but her aggression is part of the courtship ritual. The next step in the courtship is a long chase, her way of testing his mettle. She sets the pace. He must follow. When the male has proved his stamina, she will allow him to mate. Their coupling can last over an hour. If the mating is successful, in 16 months she will give birth to a calf. Lured by the female's trail, another bull appears. The female is tiring under the weight of her mate and is trying to dislodge him. If she succeeds, the intruder may have his chance. Scattered amongst the grasslands are basins of water called beels, favorite fishing spots for pelicans. The floods of the last monsoon replenished the beels and restocked them with fish. With the advance of the dry season, the water levels in the beels start to fall, concentrating the fish and making it easier for the pelicans and the adjutant storks to feed. Soon the stock of fish in the beels will dwindle, and the birds will have to move on. By April it is becoming increasingly hot, and many of the beels have dried up. The ones that still have water bring the normally solitary rhinos together. In the oppressive heat of the day, the wallow is the place to be. Buffaloes also wallow to keep their bodies cool. The mud provides a protective coating against biting insects. Buffaloes are gregarious and like to crowd together, quite unlike the rhinos. When an inquisitive calf approaches the wrong mother, tempers flare. When one mother gives way, peace returns. As temperatures continue to rise, the heat draws in rain clouds. But these pre-monsoon clouds often deliver no more than a drizzle. It's a time of tantalizing anticipation, a time of waiting for the monsoon. The summer monsoon usually arrives in early June, traveling a well-established route. It will come into India as two arms. An eastern arm will rush in from the Bay of Bengal, sweeping over Kaziranga and beyond until checked by the Himalayan mountains. A western arm will come in from the Arabian Sea and make landfall at the tip of southern India, where it will collide with a mountain range called the Western Ghats. On the highest reaches of these mountains lives a rare wild goat, the Nilgiri tahr. For most of the year, the females and their young live in small herds separate from the males. In the dry season, the herds are constantly on the move, scouring the mountain slopes for food. For the young tahr facing their first summer, life is particularly hard. The grass is coarse, and their mother's milk has all but dried up. Luckily, there have been some pre-monsoon showers, and a few clumps of grass have sprouted new shoots. Without this new growth, many young tahr would not survive. The monsoon is not far away, but for now, the only dark clouds on the horizon are clouds of smoke from forest fires on the plains below. In the tinder dry forest, the water holes have been shrinking. The tepid water has been muddied by the many elephant herds that have passed through. It is barely fit to drink, but at least the water will help him to cool off. Every day, the fires advance. The flames consume everything on the forest floor, destroying the last edible grasses and shrubs. The fires and the lack of food have driven most of the elephants to the edge of the forest, where there's still some grass. But for animals that each require an average of 400 pounds of food every day, there is scarcely enough. This is the most difficult time of year for the elephants. The old and the weak will not survive. It's a time of easy pickings for the vultures. But the fortunes of the animals may soon be about to change. It is now early June, and a cool wind has sprung up from the southwest. From out over the Arabian Sea, the monsoon finally arrives in South India. From now until September, it will rain almost every day. The spell of the dry season has been broken. Soon there will be plenty of food and water everywhere, and the elephant herds will be able to return to the forest. The monsoon clouds sweep inland until their path is blocked by the towering mountains of the Western Ghats. During the 4 months of the monsoon season, they will drench these slopes with over 20 feet of rain. Over millennia, this heavy rainfall has created an incredibly lush rainforest. Within the forest, the rains awaken life. A Travancore tortoise emerges from its dry season shelter beneath the leaf litter. The rains trigger a new season of activity for the creatures of the forest. Soon there'll be enough water everywhere for the toads to breed. A giant forest snail feeds on the moss that springs up almost overnight on the rocks. A 6-inch-long centipede prowls the forest floor in search of food. The venom in its jaws will kill the frog quickly. The centipede is a voracious feeder. In an hour, there will be practically nothing left of the victim. The monsoon brings a bonanza for all the creatures of the rainforest. In the canopy, the lion-tailed macaque is spoiled for choice. For this fruit eater, the monsoon has a special treat in store: jackfruit. A single fruit will provide this young macaque with enough food for a whole day. With coveted food like this, it's best to take it and run. The dominant male of the troop is just waking from a siesta. He'll have no qualms about snatching the fruit. The young macaque must eat as fast as he can. His hurried feeding is manna from heaven for a Travancore tortoise. The fruit is sticky, but the tortoise has all the time it needs to relish it, unlike its nervous benefactor. The dominant male is closing in. The youngster must make good his escape. On the forest floor, a conflict of a different kind is brewing. A fight for mating rights. The older male on the right has moved into the younger male's territory and is meeting stiff resistance. The younger male's spirited defense was of no avail. Having disposed of his rival, the victor comes courting. His sense of smell will tell him if the female is receptive. If she is, he will woo her in his own unique way. The male's techniques for love or war are surprisingly similar. During the monsoon, the male will try and mate with as many females as possible. The rains have filled the streams, and the forest is bursting with an abundance of water. After every shower, the warm forest exhales water vapor back into the atmosphere, adding to the rainfall higher up the mountains where the tahr live. The female herds have now swollen with the arrival of adult males, known as saddlebacks, because of the light patch on their backs. For most of the year, they live in bachelor herds. It's only during the monsoon that they join the females. Although some females are still suckling young, most will soon be ready to mate. But before the breeding can start, the tahr must feed on the new monsoon growth to build up their condition. The monsoon is now well established along the west coast of South India, where the rains will continue until September. Deflected by the mountains, the incoming clouds are forced northwards. The monsoon will travel over 1,000 miles up the subcontinent towards the parched lands of northwest India. The incredible heat rising off the desert will help draw the monsoon north. But it may never get here. Some years it can exhaust itself during its long journey. Only a few hardy species like the Indian wild ass manage to survive in this harsh landscape, where summer temperatures can reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Desert has claimed large tracts of this part of India. The few remaining pockets of forest lie along the direct path of the monsoon. In these forests there's still a little water left, and the animals take full advantage of it. The rhesus macaques play confidently because during the heat of the day, their arch-enemy is asleep in another forest pool. Tigers hate the heat and will spend hours soaking in the water. These arid forests of Rajasthan in northwest India are the hottest areas inhabited by tigers. But despite the crippling heat, not all tigers can afford to loll in the water. This tigress has 2 nearly full-grown cubs, and to keep them fed, she has to hunt constantly. The dry, open forest makes concealment difficult and stalking almost impossible. Once spotted, there is no point in even trying here. She's an ambush hunter who relies on stealth and surprise to make a kill. Within her territory of 10 square miles is an extraordinary oasis, an ancient man-made lake where the hunting is good. Once her own kind were hunted here. For centuries, this forest of Ranthambore was the hunting preserve of Mughal emperors and Rajput kings. When their dynasties fell, their lodges and palaces reverted to the forest and its animals. The tigress may have given birth to her cubs in one of these ruins. The lake shore is a tiger's dream. Arrayed before her, tantalizingly close, are prey animals of every kind. But she must be extremely careful. One wrong move and the feast could vanish. She will only get one chance to make a kill. The sharp-eyed langur monkeys are the sentinels of the forest, but today they're busy feeding. The tigress has slipped past and will wait for her chance. The sambar deer feeding on waterweeds are unaware of the danger. She has killed a young sambar with a single bite to the back of the neck. Tails raised in alarm, the rest of the sambar scatter. It took a huge burst of energy to make the kill. Now, the tigress must drag the carcass over a mile to where her cubs are waiting. The sambar is easily half her weight, and the stifling heat makes her task more difficult. But at least the kill will feed her family for a couple of days. At last, there is a promise of rain. The peacock's courtship dance becomes more urgent. There's a smell of rain in the air. Under cover of darkness, the monsoon arrives in Rajasthan. In an underground burrow, a female python sits tightly coiled around her clutch of eggs. She laid them 60 days ago, time to hatch with the monsoon. Now she can sense movement within the eggs. Soon she will leave them, never to return. Her young will hatch on their own. They'll have no trouble fending for themselves in this season of plenty. The hatchlings break out of the leathery eggshell with the help of an egg tooth, a razor-sharp protrusion at the tip of the snout. Once they've slit the shell, the hatchlings will stay within the egg for a few more hours to absorb the remaining yolk. The egg tooth will soon fall off. The young pythons are almost 2 feet long when they hatch, big enough to crush a large mouse or a frog. But they will not have to hunt straight away. The yolk stored in their bodies will sustain them for about a week. The young pythons emerge into a world blessed by the monsoon. As the hatchlings leave the burrow, their immediate instinct is to find water. Guided by its sense of smell, the first one out heads for a drink from a fresh puddle of rainwater. Several times during the first few hours, it will try out its jaws. At daybreak, the rain resumes. The downpours continue almost non-stop for a week. A region that has not seen rain for 8 long months drinks deeply. In this arid part of India, the effects of just a few days of rain are dramatic. As soon as the earth softens, winged termites emerge. They've been nurtured in the nest by the smaller worker termites. With the arrival of the monsoon, they're now ready to fly out and start new colonies. The winged termites are packed with protein, nutritious morsels for a pied-crested cuckoo. A myna collects as many as it can for its chicks. The exodus will not last long. Because of the profusion of insects and other food during the monsoon, many birds breed at this time. Peacock chicks have also hatched. While they're busy feeding on insects and grass seeds, their mother keeps a sharp lookout for danger. It's only the mother tigress, and she has no interest in baby peacocks. These days she has time to laze. At last, her cubs are learning to hunt for themselves. This cub still has a lot to learn about the art of stalking. Now the forest is on full alert. But hunger is a great teacher. Stealth and speed will come with practice. Nearby, his sister has found another way to pass the day. But even doing nothing can have its problems. The monsoon has produced a bumper crop of blood-sucking flies, and they are a real nuisance. The monsoon has created a different kind of problem for the mother. The rains have washed away the scent marks she's carefully laid out around her territory. So after every shower, she has to patrol her boundaries and respray her scent. It's a warning to other tigers that this is her domain. One day, when she's ready to have another litter, she'll push even her own cubs out. They'll have to stake their own claims to other parts of the forest. The monsoon has transformed the tiger's forests in Ranthambore. But an even more dramatic change has taken place not far away, where a dusty scrubland has turned into a watery paradise. Bharatpur is India's most famous wetland. Its monsoon-filled marshes are now teeming with fish, food for thousands of water birds that have come to breed: egrets, herons and cormorants. The most spectacular monsoon visitors are just arriving, the painted storks. Both males and females sport the beautiful breeding colors that give these storks their name. Constant preening keeps them looking their best. Every day more painted storks arrive to swell the colony. As if to celebrate their coming, the rain clouds reappear. This weather pattern is typical of the summer monsoon, days of rain alternating with days of heat and humidity. It is this cycle of rain and sunshine that makes the marshes so rich. During a good monsoon, birds breed in extraordinary profusion. In the painted stork colony, almost every nest has 2 or 3 chicks. On the exposed treetops, it can get very hot. The adult birds keep their bills open to prevent overheating. They protect their downy chicks from the sun with their wings. Despite the shading, the chicks get extremely thirsty and constantly beg for relief. Without water, the chicks will die. So every few hours, a parent bird will fill up at the marsh below and ferry water back to the nest. With the diligent care of both parents, the chicks will thrive. The short season of rain in northwest India is practically over. Within 6 weeks of its arrival here, the western arm of the monsoon begins to retreat. But over 1,000 miles to the south, where the rains began 3 months ago, the monsoon is still active. In between the rain showers, the tar rut is at its peak. The pheromones in the air are driving the males into a sexual frenzy. They chase the females relentlessly. With so many females in the herd, the only way for males to find out which ones are still receptive is when a female stops to offer a urine sample. The males, on the other hand, use their urine like an aftershave to advertise their presence. When a male finally finds a receptive female, the mating takes place without much ado. The chases will continue until all the females have mated. Then the males will gradually regroup into bachelor herds and return to their remote crags. The western arm of the monsoon is weakening, but the eastern arm is more vigorous than ever. Stopped short by the great Himalayan ranges, the monsoon continues to drench northeast India and Kaziranga with enormous quantities of rain. It has been raining heavily in Kaziranga for the last 3 months. The beels have been replenished, and the ground is saturated with water. When the rains relent, the heat builds up again. The clouds trap the heat, creating a hothouse that stimulates enormous growth. In the tall grass, a tiger is on the prowl. It's not after the fast-moving deer, but on the trail of something much more vulnerable, a baby rhino. Although the short-sighted mother can't see the tiger, her acute sense of smell has alerted her to its presence close behind. She is torn between chasing off the tiger and staying with her calf. The best way for the rhino to protect her calf is to take refuge in the sea of grass. The tall grass might be a sanctuary against predators, but it will offer no protection against the Brahmaputra River, which has been rising steadily with the monsoon rains. Any day now, it could breach its banks and engulf the grasslands. As more clouds rush in, the downpours intensify in the mountains above Kaziranga. The mountain forests have absorbed all the water they can hold. The runoff is now adding to the already swollen stream. As they plunge down the mountain slopes, the cascades grow ever larger. Finally, the torrents empty into the Brahmaputra. The river rises rapidly and invades the floodplain. The speed of the rising waters catches the animals by surprise, and they make for higher ground. Even this will soon be underwater. To escape the floods, the animals must reach the Mikir Hills to the south. The waters rise higher every hour. Animals that are too slow to escape can be swept away by the flood or drown. Swimming across the vast expanses of water is exhausting. Soon Kaziranga is under 12 feet of water. Only the tips of the tall grass are visible. The high water does not last more than a few days. When the floodwaters recede, the toll is revealed. This rhino is one of many creatures that have perished in the floods. The animals that escaped to the hills now return. This is a cycle that has been repeated over millennia, and the animals have adapted to living in a flood-prone environment. Although some have died, most of the creatures of Kaziranga will benefit from the floods. The rich silt and nutrients brought by the flood waters will further enrich the soil. This was the last burst of the monsoon. Now, at the end of September, the season of rain is finally over. But all across the country, its legacy will linger. On the other side of northern India, in the wetlands of Bharatpur, the painted storks have had an exceptional breeding season. More than 5,000 chicks have been reared successfully. The chicks are now almost as big as their parents and are hungrier than ever. Thanks to the bounty of the monsoon, a whole new generation of painted storks is ready to take wing. All around, the marshes are bursting with the arrival of tens of thousands of waterfowl from Siberia, Mongolia, and China. The birds have escaped the approaching icy winters in their faraway homelands. They come year after year to feast on the gifts of the Indian monsoon. Over the winter months, they feed in the marshes. When the land begins to warm up, the travelers leave. As the temperature continues to rise, the lushness of the monsoon begins to fade. Everywhere, the water starts drying up. The forests wilt. The last puddles evaporate, stranding all the creatures within, and the very life is sucked from the ground. Once again, the long wait will begin for the monsoon, India's god of life.